First of all, I'd like to make a short correction. New York Magazine did vote me as one of the 100 smartest people. However, in all fairness, I have to admit that Madonna also made that same comment. Next year, I understand that Lady Gaga is going to push me off the list. So that's a correction.
So let me get started with a very simple question. You're famous for all the work you've done in physics, and you've written a lot of books about physics. So you started from one of the most interesting sciences there is, the thing we should all be really interested in. And now you write a book about biology. How the sudden change of mind? Why biology? Why the sudden interest in that?
Well, there are two great mysteries in all of science. One is the origin of the universe. And that's what I do for a living. That's my day job. But when I was a child, I was fascinated by science fiction. I was fascinated by telepathy, reading minds, by telekinesis, moving objects with the mind. I was fascinated by recording memories, and maybe one day photographing a dream. So when I was a kid, I used to do experiments. I used to try to read the minds of my friends. I finally came to the conclusion that maybe telepaths do walk the surface of the earth, but I wasn't one of them. Now we can do all of the above. We can now read minds. We can now move objects with the mind. We can record thoughts. And we can even photograph dreams. All this is now possible because of physics. We've learned more about the mind in the last 5-10 years than in all of human history combined. And what we now know is that sitting on your shoulder is the most complex object in the known universe. We may have to go to the nearest star to find something as complex as what's sitting on your shoulder. And yet to duplicate that would require a supercomputer the size of a city block. To duplicate the brain, it would be energized by a nuclear power plant and cooled down by a river. Yet your brain operates on 20 watts of power. So the next time someone calls you a dim bulb, that's a compliment. And realize that to energize the brain, you only need a few hamburgers. I mean, it's amazing. Something more complicated than a computer the size of a city block just sitting on your shoulders, and historically we were clueless as to how it operated. Now, because of physics, we have brain scans that can give us thoughts as they ricochet through the mind, like a ping pong ball. We can actually verify or disprove old wives' tales about the brain, and now we can even enhance the brain and perhaps one day send it into outer space.
You do have a lot of stories about physicists in your book, and some of my biggest heroes basically want to point out that they're socially inept people, even though they're really smart. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you found out during your studies about how really smart mathematical brains go together with some other characteristics?
I've often been fascinated by why we have super geniuses that can do mathematical calculations that would stagger a supercomputer. For example, there's one gentleman who can take a helicopter ride over Manhattan Harbor, one helicopter ride, and draw the entire harbor, including all of Manhattan, all the skyscrapers and bridges, and you can see that picture the next time you go to New York. Next time you go to JFK Airport, Terminal 1, look up, and you will see a mural painted by a guy with one experience seeing all of Manhattan. That's incredible. Not only that, but these people have photographic memories. If you were to ask them, what were you doing 30 years ago, on May 2nd, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, without missing a beat, they would say, oh, I was on page 320 of reading this book. You want me to recite the page? Tim Peake, who was the model for the man in Tom Cruise's Rain Man, he memorized 15,000 books. And he could recite each page what he read. Not only that, but he read 2 pages simultaneously. With the left eye and the right eye, he would read 2 pages simultaneously when he read them. How did they do that? Well, it turns out that there was one boy who suffered a bullet wound to his left temporal lobe when he was a child. Another man dove into a swimming pool too fast, hit his left temporal lobe again on the bottom of a swimming pool. Both of them wound up as super mathematical geniuses. How is it possible that injury to the left temporal lobe can do that? Well, tonight, if you go home after this talk, do not pick up a hammer on the left temporal lobe, hoping to become a super genius.
Although if you're a physics graduate student, should I try to when you're teaching too, it's going to be a hammer?
Let's do an experiment, right? Anyway, we tried to study these people, okay? First of all, some of them have what is called Asperger's syndrome, where you have very few social skills, you're clueless when it comes to women, and it's just like watching CBS's Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory is populated by people with Asperger's syndrome. But we think that Isaac Newton, the greatest scientist who ever lived, we think that he had Asperger's syndrome. He could not carry on a conversation. You wouldn't want to invite Isaac Newton for dinner. And in fact, he was elected to Parliament from Cambridge. And according to the records of Parliament, he only said one thing while he was a member of the government. He said, "Please shut that window." That is the only time he ever said anything in the Parliament. So what is it about their brains? One theory is that when you record something as a memory, we used to think that memories decay with time. They just get old. Memories fall apart. Now we realize that's not true. It turns out that the erasing process is also a very complicated biochemical process. Our brain records, but it also erases. In these people, the erasing mechanism is broken. They have forgotten how to forget. We think that is a revolutionary way to look at memory, that they have forgotten how to forget. That mechanism is broken. One of these people lives in Los Angeles. She has a photographic memory. And she says that when she looks out the window, she sees a split image. One image is of what she sees in real life. The other one is a day in her life 30 years ago. And she lives that life along with the life of today. And she says it bothers her. It's a nuisance, always remembering trivia from 30 years ago. So maybe that's why evolution wanted us to forget. So we wouldn't have to be bothered by these extraneous memories, okay? We don't know. But also, Einstein's brain is still with us. It turns out that when Einstein passed away in 1955, the guy who did the autopsy kidnapped the brain. He swiped it, put it in a jar in his living room. He kept it in his living room for 30 years. He did it without permission of the family. People didn't even know that he had Einstein's brain behind the chair. He drove across the country in a Buick with Einstein's brain in a mayonnaise jar. And now it's back at Princeton. And when we analyze the brain, we do see that the brain is a little bit different. There's a thickening in the area that governs abstract thought. But then again, musicians, people who deal with abstract ideas, writers, composers, they also have a thickening of that area. And so we're still studying Einstein's brain. The point I'm making is, one day, it may be possible for us to augment our intelligence as well.
So in physics, we often have these debates about what's the way forward, should we do. There's this tension between experiments and theory, where we split our community into people who like to calculate, people who like to think, and people who actually do the work and things that are true in nature, like doing the experiments. How do you see the way forward in understanding the brain? Is this going to be more technology revolution, where people find more and more machines to measure, or is there going to be the next Einstein of brain science who's just going to sit there and understand how the brain is going to work?
Well, historically, people would speculate and have all these old wives' tales, hundreds of old wives' tales about the brain. Now, for the first time in history, we can actually see thoughts circulating in the mind and prove or disprove these old wives' tales. For example, if you're a parent and you have teenage children, you know they suffer from brain damage. We know every teenager suffers from brain damage. And when you put a teenager in an MRI scan, it's true. The prefrontal cortex is not well formed in teenagers. you can see that they don't evaluate logic correctly because this part of the brain is the last part to develop. The brain developed from the back, which is the so-called reptilian brain, the ancient brain of reptiles, then evolves forward as you get older, so that you have emotions, and you begin to regulate emotions. The last part of the brain to develop is the front part of the brain, which governs logic. Another old wives' tale that we can now show is correct is, it's an old wives' tale that when a man talks to a pretty girl, he starts to act stupid. It's true. You can see blood draining from the prefrontal cortex when a man talks to a pretty girl. It's really true. That's why they act retarded. Blood is draining from the forehead. Okay? And then Sigmund Freud had this bizarre theory that there was the ego, which is you, the superego, your conscience, and the libido, your pleasure center. Well, you know, that was 100 years ago. Nobody could prove or disprove this idea. Now we can. Now we realize the ego is right behind your forehead. This is where you are. If you ever wondered, where am I anyway? You are right behind your forehead. That's where you are. That's the ego. Your guilty conscience, we now know, is located right behind your eyes. That's where your guilty conscience is. And your pleasure center is located right dead center inside the brain. Now, if you take the pleasure center and hook electrodes to it, and hook the electrodes to a mouse, so the mouse can hit a telegraph key, the mouse will hit the telegraph key twice a second until he starves to death.
Wow.
So scientists then went up to scale dogs, cats, and see whether they would also click the pleasure key until they died of starvation. They went up to a dolphin. The dolphin's pleasure center was hooked up so that when the dolphin swam forward, it would hit a plate and then energize its pleasure center. Well, the dolphin would hit that plate twice a second until it realized, I am dying. I am dying of starvation. Then the dolphin will go out, eat fish, and then come back and stimulate it. Dolphins are stupid. So anyway, you can sort of see now that many of these old wives' tales, these old theories of psychology you read about in textbooks, none of which could be proven, you can actually see now as thoughts ricocheting through the thinking mind.
When I was preparing for this evening, I watched you on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And one thing you were telling there is that soon we'll be able to kind of no longer having to study math, but we'll imprint like all the knowledge of algebra and calculus directly into the brain. Do I have to hear about my job when I see you?
Let's talk about uploading memories. Okay. There's a movie, The Matrix. The whole movie is based on the idea that you can upload false memories like learning karate, but also reality itself could be an illusion uploaded into your memory. Let me ask you a quick question. How many of you late at night, when you're all by yourself at night, ever thought that maybe the Matrix is right? Maybe reality is an illusion. Maybe you're the only one. And everything else is just a fiction uploaded into your memory. Raise your hand if late at night you have that weird feeling. Wow. You're crazy. What? You're the only one in the universe? Give me a break. I'm the only one. You're just a fiction. I'm in bed. I'm in bed right now, and the memory of this is being uploaded into my mind. You're not really here at all. Now, is that possible? Last year, just last year, at Wake Forest University and USC, history was made. The first memory was uploaded into a mouse. People thought this was not possible. It was done. A mouse was trained to sip water from a bottle. They then measured the electrical impulses in the hippocampus, the center of the brain. They recorded it. Then the mouse forgot how to do this after a while. Then they reinserted the memory into the hippocampus, and boom, the mouse got it on the first try. At MIT, they even topped it and put a false memory into a mouse. Now, what is the goal of this? The goal of this is next go to primates, load memories into monkeys. That's coming probably next year. And after that, to approach Alzheimer's disease using a brain pacemaker. That's the goal. The goal is to take people with Alzheimer's disease, upload the memory into their hippocampus, the memory of who they are, who their children are, where they live, where they put the keys, and a pacemaker. Anytime they forget, they can simply hit the key and they will know who they are and where they're going. But after that, maybe we'll upload a memory of a vacation you never had, or the courses you flunked in college. You have a second chance to learn those courses. Now remember, all we can do today is upload a single memory. That's all we've done today. But in the future, people think more and more complex memories will be uploaded into the mind, which means that perhaps workers can be retrained to work in the workforce with higher skills. This will affect the economy. Many workers are laid off because they don't have the skills necessary to survive in a technological age. Why not insert the memory so they can operate with higher levels of skills? This could affect the job market. Not only that, it could affect vacations, and parents will always want to buy this for their children instead of lecturing their kids on how bad drugs are and you shouldn't drive too fast. You can just give them a memory of what it's like to crash in an automobile accident or to overdose on drugs or something. And the kids will say, oh my God, parents were right. And so this could have enormous implications. Just some of them I mentioned.
Yeah, I'm very interested in your work on popularizing science. You seem to be doing a very good job with this, as you can tell. You have the whole audience with you. But sometimes I wonder when you do this, where do you draw the line between what we know for fact and where does the speculation start? How do you help your audience understand exactly where the borderline is?
When I write a book about the future, I'm very careful to draw a line between just fantasy, what doesn't exist, and prototypes in the laboratory. That's the dividing line. I want to interview these scientists who are making the exact prototypes that will one day revolutionize the world. If there's no working prototype, I'm going to just say that it's fiction and say that it's speculation. For example, in my book, I wrote that one day we will have the internet in our contact lens. So you blink and you're online. And the first people to buy internet contact lenses will be college students taking final examinations. They will blink and they'll see all the answers to my exams in their contact lens. And the next person to buy internet contact lenses will be President Barack Obama. So he doesn't have to have these damn teleprompters sitting in front of him giving him his speech. The next person to have internet contact lenses will be Vice President Joe Biden. So he never says anything goofy. It's right there inside his contact lens. And the next person to buy internet contact lenses will be tongue-tied Romeos who can't say the right things on Valentine's Day. In the future, all Romeos will have buttery words coming flowing from their mouth on Valentine's Day because it's right there in their contact lens. Well, right here at the University of Washington, we have a group developing some of the prototypes of an internet contact lens. They're not that advanced yet, but we think that one day you will simply blink and go online. And then beyond that, and here's where speculation comes in now, beyond that, we hope to replace that with a brain net. That is the internet of emotions, the internet of experiences and feelings. We're going to record them and put them on the internet. And teenagers will love it. Teenagers on Facebook will be able to put their teenage experiences on Facebook and they'll go crazy. Their first date, their first kiss, all that's going to be on Facebook. And they're going to come up to you, the parents, and say, what? How could you live in a world where the internet was just digital? How could you live like that? That's a stone age. Because that, I think, is going to be the future. We're going to have a brain net to replace the internet. And that will also replace the movies. The movies haven't changed in 50 years. It's a screen with sound. That's it. That's the movies. Oscars, everything. It's just a two-dimensional screen and sound. In the future, we could have total immersion entertainment. That is, sights, sounds, emotions, memories, experiences, feelings, not just a flat screen and sound. That, however, is still speculation. So I'm very careful to say that working prototypes of the internet contact lens already exist. The BrainNet is a dream, but it is based on the reality that we can record memories now, and we can actually record emotions.
Speaking about speculations, at the end of the book, you talk about how there's a room for consciousness in our current understanding of quantum mechanics. That's the sort of place where physicists often get very nervous talking about. Quantum mechanics is very dear to us, and we don't want any biology messing around with our. You can elaborate a little bit on do you see a room for consciousness in quantum mechanics?
Well, consciousness is the most highly debated thing in all of science, and there's no consensus. Over 20,000 papers have been written about consciousness by ministers, theologians, priests, by doctors, psychiatrists. Never in the history of science have so many written so much to produce so little. However, in my book, I give you a definition of consciousness which seems so slippery. In fact, Robert Frost, the famous poet, once said that consciousness starts when you wake up in the morning and ends when you open your office door. So, what is this consciousness? Well, I take a cue from physics. I'm a physicist. But we want to study something like a planet, or a star, or an electron. First of all, you have to locate its position in space. You have to know where it's located. So you create a model of a planet in space. Then you calculate its motions with regards to other planets and other objects. And finally, when you got everything in place, you run the videotape forward in time. You let it evolve in time. In other words, you make predictions. Therefore, I have a definition of consciousness. Consciousness is the number of feedback loops necessary to create a model of ourselves in space, where we're located, where we are in relationship to other humans, and time, that is running the videotape forward to understand the future. And so I'm saying is that is what consciousness is. The brain is continually making images of the future. Animals don't do that. Animals are conscious. They have level 1 consciousness. They know where they are in space. They have level 2 consciousness. They know where they are with respect to other animals, emotions, social hierarchy, social pecking order, like wolves, like foxes. But only humans predict the future. We see the future. We spend all our time daydreaming, planning, strategizing. That's a consciousness that we have that animals don't have. Now, believe it or not, animals do have consciousness, but it's different from ours. How many people here have a cat, for example? Raise your hand if you have a cat. Well, have you ever noticed a cat comes up to you and purrs next to your feet, and you say, "Oh, my cat is so affectionate," right? Wrong. The cat is saying, "I own this human. I'm going to mark this human as part of my territory. I'm going to put my hormones on this human, and I've trained the human to feed me twice a day. Stay away. I own this human." Now, dogs have a different consciousness. Their consciousness is full of smells, right? And when they come up and slobber all over you, you say, "Oh, dogs are man's best friend," right? Wrong. When the dog comes up to you and slobbers all over you, he thinks you are a dog. But you are the alpha dog. You are the top dog. Because dogs are pack animals. And there's a top dog that governs the pack. The dog was adopted as a baby, sees you as the top dog, and that's why he slobbers all over you. Cats, on the other hand, go by themselves because they're descended from solitary hunters, the wildcat. The wildcat is a solitary hunter, while dogs are group hunters. So they have a different consciousness than us. Our consciousness is to predict the future, to plan, strategize. For example, you may say to yourself, there are things beyond my theory, things that my theory cannot explain, like humor. How can a joke be explained by my theory of consciousness? Well, let's talk about jokes. Why is a joke funny? A joke is funny because you hear the joke and then you mentally complete the ending by yourself. But then the ending is different from what you thought it was, and then it's funny. So let me give you an example. W.C. Fields was once asked about the education of children. And the question was, are you in favor of clubs for youth? And he said, yes, but only if kindness fails. And then a daughter of Teddy Roosevelt was once asked about gossip. And she said, if you have nothing good to say about other people, then come sit next to me. And then to paraphrase the Bible, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, except do it first. So why are these quotes funny? Because when you hear the question, are clubs good for youth? You think that yes, clubs and social gatherings are always good for everybody. But W.C. Fields meant no, clubbing as in to knock the crap out of him. Okay? So you completed the dots. You completed the joke. You said, yes, clubs are good for youth. And the twist is, well, only if kindness fails. Okay? And once you deconstruct a joke, it's no longer funny because you know the ending. When you know the ending of a joke, it's no longer funny. And then the question is, if you can't say anything nice about somebody, then don't say anything at all. Your mother told you that. Don't say anything at all. You completed the joke. But the joke is, come sit next to me and share the dirt. But it's not funny anymore because you know the ending. So even humor can be looked at from the lens of what we humans do best, which is plan, strategize, see the future, daydream. And I think that's also a measure of intelligence to a degree. IQ is not the best indicator of success in life. Okay? In fact, there's one quality in children followed for 30 years that best correlates with success. These people had this one quality as children. They had, 30 years later, lower divorce rate, higher levels of happiness, higher income, and higher social status. So it's not IQ, it's not the income of your father. There's one characteristic in children that follows them for the rest of their life that best correlates with success. Does anyone know what this is?
Yes. Ability to defer gratification.
It's delayed gratification. Someone said it. It's the marshmallow test. You give a child one marshmallow now, or 2 marshmallows an hour from now. These people who can delay gratification don't take the shortcuts. They plan ahead. They sacrifice for the big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They wind up with higher incomes, lower divorce rates, higher happiness rates, because they plan for the future. And what is the common denominator? Seeing the future. That's what we humans do best. Animals can't do that. Animals operate by instinct. And so success in life often correlates with seeing the future, planning ahead. Don't take the marshmallow now. Go to college, learn a skill, master something, make something of yourself. These are the people that are most successful, and that's the hallmark of what I call intelligence. For example, a safecracker. A safecracker could have a low IQ because he flunked out of elementary school, but he knows the future of robbing a bank better than the police. That's why safecrackers can become master safecrackers, because they're smarter than the cops. They know the future of a bank robbery better than the police do. And that's why I think that IQ is not a good indicator of intelligence. Historically, many people with high IQ wind up in menial jobs. They wind up as petty criminals, wind up as marginal members of society, and losers, a lot of them. The people who succeed are the ones who succeed in the marshmallow test. So think about that when you give a marshmallow to your kids. How they deal with delayed gratification, the bigger reward in the future, most correlates with success. And that's consciousness. For me, human consciousness, the height of human consciousness is delayed gratification.
We'll be moving to a question and answer session soon, so let me take this opportunity to ask you some personal questions first.
Uh-oh.
My wife is a biology professor here at the university. I'm a physics professor. We have 2 daughters, and now I'm losing the battle. They think physics is boring, biology is exciting. Your book isn't helping. What can I do? How can I win that battle?
Well, some people say, what's in it for me when it comes to physics? What has quantum physics done for me lately? Well, the answer is everything. Quantum physics gives us the transistor, which gives us the computer, which gives us the internet, the GPS, iPods, iPads, radar, radio, all of that from the transistor. Physicists also created the laser, and that creates the internet, telecommunications, your DVDs, CDs. We created the laser from quantum physics. And we also created television. We created radio. We invented the X-ray machine. We created radar. Not only that, we created the MRI machine. And don't forget, we physicists created the space program. We're the ones who put satellites into orbit, and we're the ones who created the GPS system. So the question is, what has physics done for me lately? And the answer is everything. The 20th century was a century of physics. But now that we have physics, we can apply it to biology. Who was the man who said, let's look for a molecule like DNA? That man was Erwin Schrödinger, father of the quantum theory. A physicist is the one who said, let's look for a molecule that has encoded life. And then who actually decoded the molecule was Francis Crick, another physicist. And who was the one who created a machine that would then sequence these DNA? And that was Walter Gilbert, another physicist. 3 physicists cracked open the genome. Now what's happening is physicists are cracking open the connectome. President Barack Obama has announced in his last year's State of the Union address that Europe and America will dump $1 billion, as B, billion with a B, $1 billion to create a disk with all your connections on it. Not only will it solve the question of mental illness, but it will also mean that we can understand the greatest secret of nature, which is the human mind. And how are we doing it? Using physics. So you tell your family that biology is only successful because we physicists made it so. We're the ones who said, let's look for DNA. We're the ones who found the DNA, and we're the ones who sequenced the DNA. 3 physicists, all 3 of them Nobel Prize winners, are the ones who opened up the genome. Now we're opening up the connectome. The mind itself is now being unraveled by scientists using the fruits of physics. So tell that to your family.
And on that note, I think I'm running out of important questions to ask. We probably should have somebody else from the audience take over and have the important question answered, please.
Okay, are there any questions from the audience?
So you were saying that animals don't predict the future, and I'm thinking about my dog. And certain cues, that they see or hear certain cues, and then they anticipate things happen. Is that different than what you're talking about?
Well, animals do have a certain level of anticipation, but they don't have a concept of tomorrow. Try to talk to your dog about tomorrow's agenda, about what we're going to do next week, right? That yes, when they hunt, they will anticipate the motion of the prey. They will corner the prey. They'll use camouflage. But even then, a lot of that is hardwired into their brain. They are hardwired to look for prey, to corner them, to anticipate some of their movements. So animals will anticipate to a degree, but not to the degree of what we humans can do. We can imagine a time even after we're dead. We can imagine decades, centuries into the future when we're not here. To the best of our knowledge, animals can't do this. Now why? Because maybe intelligence was not necessary. The dinosaurs existed for 200 million years, and none of them, to our knowledge, became intelligent. To us, that means that intelligence is overrated. Maybe dinosaurs didn't have to be intelligent to survive, to become the dominant life form on the planet Earth, okay? But thank God they didn't have a space program. Otherwise, there'd be dinosaurs in this room right now if they had a space program, okay? So we think, therefore, that the dinosaurs did not see intelligence as being necessary. Now we humans have only been around for 100,000 years. 100,000 years. And so it means that in some sense, intelligence is not common in the animal kingdom. And it's not really necessary in the animal kingdom. Animals can thrive perfectly well without being intelligent. If you, for example, are simply a large ape, you can survive in the forest very well without having to learn calculus. You don't need Newton's laws of motion to survive in the forest. Right? But we do have these skills, and it does allow us to then take over the earth. So what I'm trying to tell you very simply is, evolution did not give a compelling reason for animals to see the future. That's why they don't. We're the exception, because we do anticipate, because we were maladapted to the environment. We became intelligent because we are tree-bearing. I mean, we should have lived in the trees. If you want to know the size of a tree branch in Africa 6 million years ago, it's about this big. Your opposable thumb creates a tool to grab a tree limb in Africa 6 million years ago. That's about that big. That's what tree limbs looked like back then in Africa. So we had eyesight, we had opposable thumb, and we had language. That set us off in the direction of becoming intelligent. Very few animals have this, by the way. How many animals have vocal cords that can articulate 5,000 words? How many of them have grasping instruments that are very delicate and can grasp things? How many of them have eyes, the eyes of a hunter? For example, who has eyes to the front of their face and who has eyes to the side of their face? Who can tell me? Why is it some animals have eyes to the front of their face? Why do some animals have eyes to the side of their face?
Predators.
Predators, right. And we say smart as a fox and dumb bunny. If you are a fox, your eyes are to the front because you have to have cunning, stealth, ambush, camouflage. That takes intelligence. If you're a rabbit, all you have to do is run. How smart do you have to be to do that? Your eyes are to the side of the face so you can look 360 degrees around you. So you see, in the animal kingdom, very few animals have stereo vision to the front, opposable thumb, and vocal cords capable of articulating complex, several thousand words. That's how we became intelligent. And in the animal kingdom, even today, how many animals can do that? None. They could, but right now, I don't see any animal that is on the road to becoming intelligent. Okay, yeah, question.
Do you believe in a technological singularity event? And if so, when do you think it'll happen?
Well, the singularity event is when the robots become smarter than us, and they put us in zoos, they put us behind bars, and they throw peanuts at us and make us dance. Then these robots have children. These children are smarter than their parent robots, and their children have children who are smarter than their grandparents, and this goes on infinitely until they take over the planet Earth. Then they go into outer space and devour entire planets, making computers out of entire planets. And eventually the Milky Way galaxy consists of computers making more computers out of stardust until they go faster than the speed of light in a wormhole and take over the universe. That's the singularity.